Projects 10-5 through 10-9 cover user accounts and group accounts. This will be covered on the final exam, the final skills. I'm going to jump around in these labs and point out important information that the book should explain, but I want to go ahead and review some other areas just to make sure that you read and understood important areas about user accounts. So on 10-5, I'm going to skip down to step 10. We're looking at the user add default configuration file. There's several files that deal with creating user accounts when you use the user add command. This is one of them. It specifies where the home folder's created. So it says /home. When you create a user account, there'll be a subdirectory created under that with the username, and they'll be given rights to it. Also, what is the default shell for new users, and the scale directory. Anything in that directory is copied into their new home folder. So you can pre-populate maybe like a employee handbook or other such items in the SKEL directory. Now let's look at the login.def file. It has some more information about user accounts when they are created. It is step number 14. So looking at this file, I use the less command instead of cat. We see that you can set the number of days that a password will be valid before they have to reset it. Minimum number of days they must keep a password. That value is useful if you're requiring, say, to change a password every 180 days, and you don't want the user to change the password and then instantly change it right back to the old password. You could set the minimum number of days that they have to keep their new password to 1 or 10, and that way they can't switch it back to the old password. You can also do some other configuration and some other files to get it to where that it will memorize old passwords and they won't be able to revert back to it. The minimum length of the password and the number of days before the password expires and they're given a warning you need to change a new password. Scrolling on down, another value I wanted to point out that's auto configured is the create home. On Red Hat systems, the create home is set to yes. So whenever that you create a user account, their home directory is automatically created. On other Linux distributions, that is normally set to no, the ones that I've dealt with. So if you want a home folder created, which you 99% of the time do want a home folder created for users so they can log into the system, you have to use the -m switch. So if you're looking at step 13 on 10-5, where they have user add -m space bozo, the M is optional. You don't have to do that. It'll automatically create /home/bozo, but because Red Hat's one of the few that auto creates that and you don't have to put the -m, it's best to always use -m so you don't forget if you're on a different Linux system or a different Unix system. The -m tells it to create a home folder. So if you are doing that, just ignore the fact that Red Hat automatically does that for you and go ahead and specify the -m. It'll be easier in the long run if you're dealing with the Unix command line. Let's look at another folder, ls-a. This is step 11, etc/skel. So these are the files that's going to be pre-populated in the home folder when the user account is created. And again, you can put your own files in here. So anytime a new user account is created, they automatically get files or configurations. So now let's try the user add -m. So you should always put that and the user account that you want to create. Now I'm going to look and see, does the user account exist? At least the home folder. So ls/home, I see bozo there on the screen. I'm going to look at who owns the file, ls-l/home. I see that bozo, the user account, and a group was also created called bozo was given access to that directory. So Bozo and root are the only ones that can go into that folder. Now we look at the passwd file. If I remember correctly, Red Hat starts user account IDs at 1000 and higher. So Bozo should probably be 1001 as a user ID. Some systems started at 500. So do cat passwd. I'll look at the very bottom and I see that we have Bozo down here, and the user ID is 1001, and the group ID they're associated with is 1001. Also notice that user 1 is in there at 1000. Look at the shadow, and we see that the password is not set for Bozo. It is set for user 1. We have an exclamation point in the field where the password should be. So Bozo cannot log into the system yet. It has to have a password. So we passwd, Bozo. And this you got to be really careful with the passwd command. If you don't specify user account, it will reset the currently logged in user account. So even if you're going to reset the root account, always use passwd and the username. Don't use it by itself. It can cause for major headaches if you accidentally change your password. So now I'm going to re-look at the shadow file. It doesn't tell us to, but I'll re-look at the shadow file and see that Bozo now has the $sign and the entire password in there. And again, make sure you do the steps in the lab. I've skipped a few in there and jumped around, so the init tab is not copied into the Bozo's home folder. Just make sure that was in there before you create the screenshot. Now 10-6 talks about the Usermod and the change age of the user account, so you can expire it at certain times. So Usermod, they leave out a few important switches. They're probably more important than changing a username. Username changes could be important if you have female employees that get married and their username needs to be changed. So let's look at Bozo here. They have us do usermod-l for the login name. Change it to Bozo2. I need to make sure I spell usermod correctly. So modifying the user, we're setting the login name to Bozo2, and we're going to operate on the Bozo account. So now if I look at the passwd file, I see that Bozo, the last line down there, changed to Bozo2. I notice the home folder did not change. I want us to change it back. I'll just hit my up arrow key and reverse the Bozo and Bozo2. Verify that it was changed back, and it's back to normal. And now for the user mod switches that they left out of the lab, 10-6 I believe it is here for user mod. Changing group ownership. If I do ID Bozo, it shows me that Bozo is a member of the Bozo group, and that is their primary group. And then you have groups out there that shows other groups that the Bozo user account is a member of. So we have a user mod, and we can change the primary group, the GID of Bozo account, to something different. So minus little g, and there's a users group, and then we're going to specify Bozo as the user account. So that is missing out of this section. That will probably be required, or something that you should know if you make a mistake on creating a user account. So here I look at Bozo again. I see that the group ID has been switched to users. Something else we could do usermod -g. I'm going to set the bozo account back to bozo, and I'm also going to specify an uppercase G. The uppercase G would be other groups that the user is a member of. So some of the groups out there that Linux has built in: wheel, bin, users that we just took them out of, and I'll specify bozo. And we'll look at bozo. So we see here that the primary group has been switched back to bozo, but now look at the groups. Bozo is a member of bin, wheel, and users. So that was with the uppercase G. The little g is the primary group, the big G is other groups on the system. It kind of seems backwards to me. You think primary would be uppercase and other people be lower, but it's not. The user add command has the same switches. If on the exam you're told to create a group and add them to multiple groups on the system, such as bin and wheel, I'll do user add -m uppercase G and type in bin, comma, wheel, and then a username, such as JDoe for John Doe. Now if I type ID JDoe, I see that his primary group is set because I didn't specify a little g, and I see that he is also a member of bin and wheel. So on the exam, you may make a mistake of doing a user add and say Jane Doe, and then read a little bit further and see, oh, Jane Doe is supposed to be a member of games and wheel group. You test her account out and go, oh, it's not a member of games and wheel. So you usermod, instead of deleting her account, use an uppercase G and specify games and wheel, and then her user account name. Use the ID command to verify and see that she has been added to the wheel and games group. So that will be important. I will have some example sheets and more videos covering this. But the user mod or the user add with the little g and big G are important for the final exam. Also important on the final exam is locking a user account. So we'll say that bozo has quit the company, or maybe they've done something illegal and the managers have said we need to lock this person's account so he can't log in and do anything else bad to the system. You'll have several scenarios of that on the final skills. I like to use the passwd command for locking. Since that command deals with passwords, we're going to lock it with that command. You can use usermod with a big L to lock it, but passwd, it just makes a little bit more sense to me to think, okay, I need to lock the password. I'm going to use the passwd command for that. So passwd -L bozo will lock the password. If we look at etc shadow, we see the bozo account now has 2 exclamation points, or at least 1 exclamation point in front of the password field. So we know that the account is locked out. Password's invalidated. Now to unlock the account, you'd simply use the passwd and U for unlocking the account. If we look at the shadow again, you'll notice that the 2 exclamation points have been removed, and it's back to the $6 and the big long string of encrypted password information. Moving on down to Project 10-9, that has you create a group by manually editing the group file. The original instructions said use the VI editor and edit the etc group file. However, that is not a preferred method. There are 2 special VI commands, and I made a note in that. There's VI gr and VI pw to edit the group file or to pass WD file. And what that does, it locks the file from edits. So if anybody else on the system is resetting their password, or another administrator is using the Usermod, making changes to group membership or creating new groups, it will not corrupt the file. If you use simply VI and etc/ either passwd or groups, the file is not locked. Other users can be editing those files, and then your entire system will be corrupt. All the user accounts, and some systems can have, thousands of user accounts on it. So that is a very important note. If you're ever going to manually edit passwd or group, use either VIGR to lock the account and edit, so you're the only one modifying it, or the VIPW. Now, instead of creating a group manually by editing the group file and adding the line as they had, I prefer to use group add, very similar to user add, except group add and giving it a name, maybe sales. If I look at the group file, I see sales has been added to the very bottom. I can then, at this time, add sales to, say, a user. Let's look at JDoe. I use ID JDoe. I see he's a member of bin and wheel on the other groups. And his primary group set to JDoe, so I want to add the sales group. I'd have to use Usermod -G and specify all of his current groups and the new group I want him to be a member of that I just created, sales, and then JDoe is the user account. Use ID to view him again and see that he has now been added to the sales group. So that's the preferred method, using group add to create groups, and then the Usermod command to add users to a group.